So I'm driving in the rain, and I'm thinking about permaculture and how there's this huge movement of people who want to go back to the land, who want to live off of nature, who want to garden and grow food forests and live simply. And it's such a beautiful dream and vision. I've been actively trying to pursue something like that myself for many, many years. And I'm coming to a place of pause and thinking, no, wait a minute. Why do we want this? In part, we see that it's a beautiful vision, but I think largely this is a response to the obvious instability of our system that we live on currently. The fact that we don't have a connection to nature means that if our system doesn't function, then we starve. And so, of course, gardening and food forests, like that's the most obvious thing to do, and everybody should be. We should all have victory gardens all the time. Our ancestors, even once they had radio and cars, they still had gardens. They were not going to the store for every little thing, nor were there as many things to go to the store for, which is another part of this. But the real bottom line is, it's kind of not worth even trying to build and invest in these things, because more likely than not, even if you build them, they're not going to be tended and cared for and eaten. I've heard stories of places where they plant a bunch of fruit trees in cities because they want to be able to feed the homeless, but the homeless don't eat the fruit. It falls to the ground and rots. And that same thing can happen here in rural America when we start our food forest and have permaculture things. Unless you're willing to do a lot of work, all that food, even if it is perennial and abundant, it's a lot of work to turn it into things that people can use and can transport and store, or that even just to eat right away, getting them to market, getting them to the hungry mouths. That's a whole system that we don't have. Our system does all that for us. And what we're doing with permaculture is kind of creating replicas of the industrial productive system in part, and trying to see how much of what comes in from the trucks can we make here at home. But the real impediment to doing that is that none of us are going to be very happy if we had to live that way, because we like stuff. We're really addicted to the material culture. Even those of us that have spiritual aspirations and have high ideals, we're all still addicted. I meet very few people who've really weaned themselves off, and good on them. And yet also, what good is it doing? So you've weaned yourself off, great, and now you're a rebel, and I have so much admiration. My friends Andy and Kayla up in Oregon, the teepee village, like, they were hardcore. They were living in teepees year round for years, and they still had cars and drove into town for stuff, though. But still, they took farther steps towards this sort of lifestyle than most people are ever willing to take. And I think acknowledging our own addiction to all of the stuff, particularly the most addictive stuff, which is food and substance-based, all of the tobaccos and alcohols and coffee and sugar, those are things that are very difficult to make on your homestead. And we all like them, at least some of them. Almost every one of us likes one of those things. So having a really self-reliant lifestyle is completely dependent on us being willing to work with that addiction and try and figure out, okay, well, what I'm proposing here is not that we, all should be ashamed because we're so addicted and we should all come get clean and stop doing all of the bad stuff. It's more like, in order to be resilient, one should grow a food forest, and one should go into town and buy stuff to feed people and make nice big meals and buy all the things. But if you have a good food forest in place and you have good gardens and you have root cellars, if there's ever a temporary disruption of the grid, of deliveries, of even being able to leave if you get snowed in, like, you do very well if you are set up like this. And that's part of what permaculture enables you to do, is you're living that lifestyle. You're canning, you're dehydrating things and making jars of things, and you have things put away, and you're living more off of that than you are off of the imported stuff. That's the best place to be in if there ever is a disruption, if there's a collapse, is to have the ability to be comfortable there. And so what I think most people should do, even if you don't have your own homestead or your own way to live this way, is we should all be undergoing, at least once a year, sort of immersions where we try things out. Not only the skills and learning how to do that, but try living without all the other stuff. It's like you don't have to give up your addiction forever, but you should practice what it would be like if you had none of that and all you could eat was what you had on the grounds, or what you could go catch. You catch some fish, do some hunting, do some wild foraging for mushrooms, berries. You can also, hopefully, plant that stuff. Plant the stuff you would want to be able to go get. And what do you got to lose? It's a pretty good investment to wild gardening and let gardens be everywhere, because we plant perennials and we strategically emphasize things in certain places where they would do well. It's an ancient human practice, and we've kind of forgotten it because of civilization, because it's so easy to just go with the status quo. Well, that's all I got to say about that right now. Good talking with you there.